the Mercedes EQS 580 here on Tech Today. Keeping it very simple, it's a big car with a big battery pack, massive range of course, big price tag for the big boys. But this car is assembled here in India, in Chakan. Does that mean that this is a car which is made for India? That's what we want to bring you on the electric experience, an authentic, genuine user experience of the Mercedes EQS. All I can say is, as I open this door, welcome to the future. The real USP of this car must be its battery pack, but there are things about it which tell you all about the future. And what the future of automobiles is all about, it's all electric, it's all tech, and it's all about futuristic design. For instance, if you look at these flash door handles, they're quite interesting, right? Swipe them to open them, and there you go, you've got these frameless doors as well. You see how sporty it is out here. But you can actually hear these tires on the road, especially here in Mumbai, on the tarmac. That's perhaps the only noise that you'll ever get because the cabin is absolutely silent. And then, of course, we'll walk you to this side of the car as well, branding on either end with the EQS written here. When you open the boot of an EV, and now you've seen this very often, the whole thing goes up, and this is massive when we're talking about boot space. A spare tire here in the back, and then, of course, you have the charger. When we're talking about charging, by the way, it all happens here, the magic happens here. That massive battery pack is fed from here. And of course you have slow and fast charging options. Look, this is a very expensive EV. What we want to understand through the course of this review is if the technology is there and it's really expensive, when mass adoption starts of EVs, and it's coming sooner rather than later, we keep saying that on Tech Today, then there's enough inspiration to draw from the EQS. A lot of the Indian manufacturers are working on bigger battery packs, better battery management systems. If this car claims that they can do 850 kilometers on a single charge, that's the ARAI range. In real world scenarios, if you're really zipping it like we have, 650 to 700 kilometers, and I think that is amazing. On a single charge, if an EV can give you that, range anxiety is down the drain. Look, for me, a commute to office from home is around 10 to 20 kilometers. 20 kilometers is to and fro. 20 kilometers over a month, if I go to office every day, would be 600 kilometers. That means I need to charge this car maybe once and a small top-up in the week, and I'm good to go. I think that speaks volumes about how EVs are going to overtake ICE engines. But that's just a topic that I wanted to talk about. If we get inside the car, there's so much tech loaded in this car that it's really not an auto review. It is a technology review in its truest sense. Let's hop on inside. The minute you enter the cabin of the EQS, it feels like you've actually walked into the sets of Star Wars or Star Trek or some sci-fi movie, because this is like a spaceship. I want to quickly show you the cameras as well in this car, because if you look at the camera system, it is quite impressive. The good part is you can check your surroundings either way, right? If you were to turn it around, you get this full 3D view. I'm going to now take you on the road and give you a little bit of a lowdown in terms of some of the features of the car. This is a massive 56-inch tri-screen sort of a system. They call it hyperscreen, very intuitive. And what I like the most about this system is the maps. 3D maps which can blow your mind. It's literally better than Google Maps, very accurate and brilliant depiction when you go all 3D on it as well. So I think that's a great feature. If you are approaching, say, a speed breaker, then what you need to do out there is actually slow down a little bit, press this button, and there's a bunch of buttons here. And then there's a button right here on the screen which says raise vehicle level. The car's lifted, I think, by a few millimeters, and you can then take the speed breakers quite easily. I think that's a really, really helpful, nifty sort of a feature. Of course, when you are giving an indicator to move on the left or the right, there's always an indicator in the side rear view mirrors telling you if it's safe to turn. And it's not just that. This ambient lighting that you see in the car, which is adaptive, is actually quite purposeful as well. It's not just a gimmick, because it does change its colors to signal certain safety features in the car, which I think is great. For instance, if you open the door and there's someone or some obstacle in your path or some oncoming traffic, it will then turn red to signal to you that, hey, you know what, there's someone coming and you need to wait up. And I think these kinds of small tech features can go a long way in making the whole experience a lot safer. If you look at the Mercedes EQS right here, we know what the charge levels are like. You can also see this on this screen if you want. That screen doesn't do too much, barring the fact that you can play some content with wireless headphones for the passenger. I think this is a car, either you're driving it or you're seated at the back. That's the kind of car the EQS is. Now, if you go back over here, and it's not like the other buttons do not exist, right? There are still buttons over here with all sorts of functionality. If you want the EQS menu, like I showed you, can go back to it over here. Then you have drive modes: Eco, Comfort, Sport, and boy, it really does come into its own in Sport mode, and then an individual mode as well. Let me put this in Sport mode. There you go. Effortless for this vehicle. I am just so impressed. So silent, so safe, and so planted. You know, if you take this on the highway, I think this would be the highway vehicle that everyone would actually want if they could afford it. This is an absolute pleasure to take on these sort of roads. And like you saw on the highway as well, you can overtake anyone, take turns whenever you want to. It's very planted, it feels very stable, and honestly, this is perhaps one of the best EVs I've ever driven. I always say technology is a double-edged sword. You're driving this in Indian traffic in a city like Mumbai, like I showed you just shortly before, and people are coming all over the place. If you've forgotten to turn off one function, then this car can also sort of let the tech overtake you, or should I say overtake you. Let me explain how. If you have a lot of pedestrians coming your way, you need to turn one feature off. Go on the settings in the car, and the minute you come right here on brake assist, you'll see collision avoidance, active brake assist. Turn this off. It's off right now. You can leave it on this right over here, and I'll tell you what that actually means. That now means that the technology in the car, which ends up braking by itself, assisting you with the braking, or thinking it needs to brake when there's a chance of a collision with a pedestrian or any sort of object, that will stop. So this seems to be the first thing, and I think Mercedes should have made a nice neat little shortcut for this, because this is the first thing you need to do when you're driving in Mumbai traffic. Now this is a very long car, and I'm saying long literally because it's 5.2 meters long. To actually take a U-turn like this, it's no easy task. We take this road often on some of our shoots, and even the compact SUVs don't always do this in one shot. That's because they don't have rear axle steering. This one does. Let me show you what it means. Normally you're just going to move from the front, right? These wheels would move to make you turn, but this has a little cheat code at the back, which is what I want to show you. 10 degrees of tilt, and you're going to start seeing how this rear wheel now is helping me turn this massive EV. And there you go. With a lot of room to spare, this was even easier than most of the small cars we've brought on this stretch. And honestly, Mercedes, well done. This should be a feature on all Indian cars. Off I go now.